Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, global markets reporter at Nasdaq. Joining us for this segment, we have Scott Nations, president of Nations Indexes, to take a look at trading activity in the Nasdaq-100 Volatility Index, or what we call Vol-Q, over the past month or so. Scott, it's great to see you as always. And it's interesting, with the exception of a few blips that we saw in the beginning of November, Vol-Q has solidly been in a downtrend.
That's right. It's absolutely the case. About 27.5 right now. It's up 0.5% on the day, about what you would expect with the Nasdaq-100 index itself down almost 1%. But you're absolutely right. Vol-Q was at 38 in the middle of October. It's come down quite a bit, just over 10 points, 27.5 right now. But Joe, it's important to remember that the context is that it was as low as 23 in mid-August. And when the market started selling off in mid-August, then you would expect Vol-Q to rally.
Right. So what does it suggest in terms of the equity markets as we look towards the end of 2023? Because, Scott, we know it's a seasonally positive year for the market. It seems as if a lot, or most of the bad news, has been priced in. Inflation data is starting to slow down a bit here. So it seems as if Vol-Q's in line with what we're seeing with the broader market.
Well, that's absolutely, yeah, that's also the case. We have seen interest rates come down a little bit over the past couple of weeks, and that has certainly helped the broad market. It's helped the Nasdaq-100 as the 10-year yield has come back below 4%. But Jill, the problem is that it's tough to see how interest rates can stay where they are. So, for example, tough to see how the 10-year yield can stay below 4% if the Fed funds terminal rate is going to be nearly 5%. And so what does that say to investors? It says that we may see more trouble on the horizon for equities. And the reason we talk about Vol-Q is a great way to hedge equity exposure, particularly if your equity exposure looks more and more like the Nasdaq-100. So Vol-Q futures trade at the CME under the ticker symbol VLQ. And if you want to hedge exposure, you can buy those futures. And the options on Vol-Q trade at Nasdaq. That ticker symbol is Vol-Q, VOLQ. And you can buy calls or call spreads as a way to, again, hedge your exposure to something that looks like the Nasdaq-100.
Yeah, I mean, of course, it's a 20% discount than what we saw in October. So, I mean, it would be, whether you're hedging or perhaps even a speculation here, there certainly are a number of strategies that you can take on through the end of the year here.
Yeah, absolutely. Another way to use Vol-Q futures and options is to speculate. So if you think that Vol-Q is going to continue to decline, then you could sell futures, you could sell call spreads, you could buy puts, you could buy put spreads. There's some sort of reasonable strategy to speculate on Vol-Q volatility using those futures and options.
And Scott, if we take off your options hat here for a moment and leverage your expertise, what are your thoughts as we go into the end of 2022 and the beginning of 2023 from a macro and fundamental perspective, because it's just a few weeks away?
That's right, Jill. I'm going to go back to interest rates because I really think that is what is driving the equity market. Again, with 10-year yield below 4%, but it looks like the terminal rate for Fed funds is going to be nearly 5%. That just doesn't make very much sense. And so to the degree that interest rates are going to go higher, that's going to be a problem for equities throughout the rest of the year. Because, we have to get to a point where those two are in balance. You're absolutely right. We had some really nice, or better than expected anyway, inflation data, but inflation is still way above where the Federal Reserve wants it. And so we are going to have to get much better inflation data going forward in order to think that the Fed is really going to ease up when it comes to raising interest rates.
All right, Scott, appreciate the insight as always. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, global markets reporter at Nasdaq.